Liz Truss's journey to becoming Prime Minister of the United Kingdom and her rapid downfall is a fascinating political story, marked by ambition, controversy, and a series of missteps that led to her brief and tumultuous tenure. Liz Truss's political career began in earnest when she was elected as the Member of Parliament, MP, for South West Norfolk in 2010. Prior to her parliamentary career, Truss had held various positions in the private sector and local government, gaining a reputation as a determined and capable individual. Her rise within the Conservative Party was swift, as she was appointed to several ministerial roles under Prime Ministers David Cameron, Theresa May, and Boris Johnson. As a prominent figure in the Conservative Party, Truss was known for her staunch support of free market principles and her advocacy for deregulation and tax cuts. She held various cabinet positions, including Secretary of State for Environment, Food and Rural Affairs, and Secretary of State for International Trade. Her tenure in these roles was marked by a focus on trade deals post-Brexit and a commitment to reducing regulatory burdens on businesses. Truss's ambitions for the top job were no secret. When Boris Johnson's leadership came under increasing scrutiny and pressure due to various scandals and crises, the Conservative Party was in search of a new leader. Truss positioned herself as a candidate who could restore the party's fortunes and lead the country with a fresh perspective. Her campaign emphasized economic growth, tax cuts, and a return to conservative values. In September 2022, following Boris Johnson's resignation, Liz Truss emerged as the winner of the Conservative Party leadership contest, defeating her rival Rishi Sunak. Her victory was hailed by many within the party as a new beginning, and she was sworn in as Prime Minister. Truss's ascent to the highest office in the land was a moment of triumph for her and her supporters, but it quickly became apparent that her tenure would be far from smooth. One of the first major challenges Truss faced as Prime Minister was addressing the economic fallout from the COVID-19 pandemic and the ongoing energy crisis exacerbated by Russia's invasion of Ukraine. The UK was grappling with rising inflation, soaring energy prices, and a cost of living crisis. Truss's response to these challenges would ultimately define her short time in office. In an effort to stimulate economic growth, Truss and her Chancellor, Kwasi Kwarteng, unveiled a bold economic plan that included significant tax cuts, particularly for the wealthiest individuals and corporations. The plan also involved increased government borrowing to fund these tax cuts, with the expectation that they would spur economic activity and generate higher tax revenues in the long run. This approach, often referred to as trickle-down economics, was controversial and faced immediate criticism from economists, opposition parties, and even some within her own party. The announcement of the mini-budget in September 2022, which included the largest tax cuts in decades, sent shockwaves through the financial markets. Investors reacted negatively, leading to a sharp decline in the value of the British pound and a surge in government borrowing costs. The market turmoil forced the Bank of England to intervene to stabilize the financial system, further highlighting the fragility of the UK's economic position. Public reaction to Truss's economic policies was equally harsh. Many saw the tax cuts as benefiting the wealthy at the expense of ordinary citizens struggling with rising living costs. The backlash was swift and widespread, with protests and calls for Truss to reverse her policies. The Conservative Party's poll ratings plummeted, and internal dissent grew as MPs began to question the viability of her leadership. In response to the mounting pressure, Truss and Kwarteng made a series of U-turns on their economic plans. They scrapped the proposed tax cuts for the highest earners and announced measures to mitigate the impact of rising energy prices. However, these reversals only served to undermine Truss's credibility and erode confidence in her leadership. The perception that she lacked a coherent and consistent economic strategy further damaged her standing both within her party and among the public. The final blow to Truss's premiership came in October 2022, just a little over a month after she took office. Facing relentless pressure from Conservative MPs and the public, she was forced to dismiss Kwasi Kwarteng as Chancellor, replacing him with Jeremy Hunt, a move intended to restore stability and confidence. However, this drastic step did little to salvage her leadership. The damage to her reputation was too severe, and her ability to govern effectively had been irreparably compromised. On October 20th, 2022, Liz Truss announced her resignation as Prime Minister, making her the shortest-serving Prime Minister in British history. Her resignation marked the end of a dramatic and turbulent chapter in British politics. Truss's brief tenure had been characterized by bold ambitions, controversial policies, and a series of missteps that ultimately led to her downfall. In the aftermath of her resignation, the Conservative Party was left to pick up the pieces and chart a new course. The lessons from Truss's time in office were clear. The importance of sound economic policies, the the need for effective communication and leadership, and the dangers of prioritizing ideology over pragmatic governance. Her rise and fall serve as a stark reminder of the challenges and complexities of political leadership in a rapidly changing world.